Welcome to this message for the fifth Sunday of Easter, May 10, 2020. I am Pastor Lester Spees from Memorial Lutheran Church in Glendale, Wisconsin. Please feel free to visit our website or our Facebook page to learn more about who we are and how you can get involved in one or more of our many ministries. Happy Mother's Day to all of those moms who are watching this week, including all of you who act as a mothering spirit in the lives of others. Being a mom isn't exclusively about biology or legal status. So thank you to all of those who provide love and support, wisdom and direction for those of us who need it, whatever our age and life circumstance might be. God bless you and your presence in our lives. Happy Mother's Day. Normally, this is where I would encourage you to stop and look up the scripture readings for today before coming back to the video. But I thought I'd mix things up a little bit this week and actually share the gospel reading with you before continuing with my sermon. By the way, this week's sermon is a little bit longer than usual. But don't get used to it. I'm sure I'll be back to my average length by next week. So we begin with our gospel reading, which comes from the Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 14th chapter, verses 1 through 14. Glory to you, O Lord. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Jesus said to him, Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, Show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe in me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Well, for more than a decade now, the Spees family has had at least one kid in college, and that will continue to be true for at least another 3 years. So when early to mid-May hits the calendar, it usually means that someone, or more than one someone, from the family has to take a road trip to help whichever kid is in college at the time move out of the dormitory for the summer. This year is going to be very different. Michelle isn't even in her college dorm in Maine right now. She is staying with a friend in New Hampshire as she finishes out the semester. And since we have older kids who are young enough to still enjoy long road trips, our daughter Anna and her husband Hugh have volunteered to make the trip this year and bring Michelle home for the summer. So my wife and I are off the hook, at least this May. Although I'm grateful for the ability not to have to make that long trip this year, I will say that some of my favorite memories have been with my kids as we help them gather up their stuff for the summer and move them home or to their summer jobs after the completion of another semester. I remember one trip with our son Ryan in particular that was filled with wonderful conversation and caused me to start thinking about some things differently when it came to church leadership. That conversation continues to inspire research and reflection on my part, even to this day. This particular conversation took place more than a decade ago. Ryan was still a student at Hamline University, where he did his undergraduate work in physics and religious studies. And we spent time talking about some of the things that he had learned that particular semester. One of the things that he had learned in his New Testament class was that church membership and or church attendance in Christian communities had actually gone down over the years in America. Fewer and fewer Americans were identifying themselves as Christian than they had in the past. And we talked about some of the reasons why that may be the case. As a numbers person myself, I have been keeping up with the statistics for most years since that conversation, and that trend hasn't changed. In the year 2000, there were surveys that showed that about 70% of Americans were connected with some church or synagogue on a regular basis. That was a statistic that was roughly in line with what was happening in America even back in the 1950s. Now, it was slightly lower than the peak, but it was still in line with the long-term trends back in 2000. 10 years ago, when Ryan and I were first talking about this issue together, the percentage had gone down to about 60%. Today, about 10 years later, the percentage has actually gone down to about 50%. Obviously, all of us know congregations where they have been bucking the trends, where most congregations and religious traditions have been experiencing declines. There are churches that have seen increases, small and large, to their numbers. Those who have been experiencing such growth then become models, or at least places to study, to see what, if any, magical formula they may have that can be copied, so that each congregation experiences that same growth and vitality. One of the things that I have been doing in quarantine is trying to read and watch other leaders to learn from them and to be inspired by them, both in the here and now, and for the day when we are able to be back in our buildings and working on continuing our ministries face to face. One of these pastoral leaders that I've been watching and reading is Reverend Adam Hamilton. He is a United Methodist pastor who helped start a congregation that grew from 4 members, him and his family, to over 22,000 members in a relatively short period of time in Leawood, Kansas. It is currently the largest United Methodist church in the world. In one of the video presentations that I watched, in talking about the church of today and its outreach to the community, he said something to the effect that research shows that the problem isn't Jesus. People aren't turned off by the message of Christ. The problem is the people, that is, the church. Research shows that some people are turned off by the members and leaders of the church. So Pastor Hamilton has done a series on effective leadership, meaningful worship and preaching, and missional outreach to the community. I'm still working my way through these presentations. Hopefully, I will find or continue to find some things to apply to our situation as well. I have already found value in several things that I have learned from watching what I have seen so far. But I've also read a few things that he has written that has raised a few questions for me. Now, in fairness to him, I haven't read all of the context, so I'm not sure if he is reporting in what I'm reading or if he is advocating. There is a difference, and I will be happy to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I also understand that whether or not I agree with it or not, whether I am comfortable with the truth or not, the information that he shares is clearly what the research is showing when it comes to church growth. So my feeling differently or wanting things to be different doesn't change the facts. With that said, here are some of the things that Pastor Hamilton wrote in his book, Leading Beyond the Walls. First of all, he states, growing churches know that people respond best to clearly defined terms of membership. And as an example of how this theory works in practice, Pastor Hamilton shared this case in point. One church that was studied has defined membership standards that include 1. Attending worship every weekend unless you are ill or out of town. And if you are out of town, you are encouraged to attend services locally in the community where you find yourselves on Sunday morning. 2. Participation in at least one activity each year aimed at helping you grow in your faith apart from worship attendance, like Sunday school, church committee work, small group ministries, and the like. 3. Giving of your time in Christian service through the ministry of the church. And 4. Giving financially in proportion to your income, with the goal of at least 10% of your income. Now, if you do not follow the rules of the congregations as they have been established, then you are taken off of the rules and you receive a letter to that effect. Growing churches, for example, do not ask members when confirmation classes are best for the members and their schedules. Growing churches tell people when to come. And if the time doesn't work for you, then you either make it work for you or you go somewhere else. Growing churches do not actively seek to accommodate people. People accommodate to the church. Now, I'll be honest with you. As I've grown older and had more life experience, I'm starting to appreciate the idea of rules and standards more than I did in the past. I have a greater understanding of the attitude or sentiment that says, if people get offended by laying down of the law, so what? Let them. Again, I understand that attitude. I just don't happen to share it. In the gospel passage for today, Jesus talks of a place, a home with many rooms, a place where Jesus makes room for his followers. Followers who like rules given to them to follow, and followers who appreciate a little freedom and understanding. This sense of place and this promise of place provide hope and comfort for all of us. In this season of Easter, We continue to celebrate the new life that comes through Jesus. And this new life is a life that Jesus helps us live not only now, but also in the world to come. Jesus provides a place for us on earth, a place where we can worship him, learn more about him, and become empowered to share with others the joys we know in and through this place. And Jesus provides a place for us in heaven, a place where we can live with him and worship him forever. I've read the books. I have listened to the experts, and I know what the research says. More people join churches that have very clear expectations for membership. Americans generally want to know what to believe and how much to give. Surprising to me, a lot of people are uncomfortable with options and accommodations. There are formulas for successful ministries in the eyes of the world, and there are churches that prove the formulas work. But for me at least, there's another definition of success that isn't necessarily measured by numbers on a list or how successful you have been at fulfilling a 4-step formula. There's also a definition that has to do with faithfulness. A faithfulness that may not necessarily be measured numerically. I think there should be a place, a dwelling place, where accommodations to schedules is an okay thing. A place where when you break the rules, you still can be part of the community. A place where the percentage that you give doesn't determine how you are treated in that fellowship. I think there should be a place where we are all welcomed, including those who like to be told what to do and when to do it. Jesus says, "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also." I feel comfort in knowing that there is a place for me in God's house. And no matter who you are and what your expectations might be, there is a place for you as well. That is good news indeed. Amen.